And tonight, for our last but definitely not least session of the day, we're going to be talking with the amazing Mary, who's a fintech growth lead, ex-fintech growth lead at Seckle and now Fun Employed, and who's going to be talking to us tonight about everything personal brand. And the reason I thought this topic was so good is because it's been a bit of a tumultuous year, right, with fintech marketers, to be honest. And I think having a personal brand now is more important than ever, really, to make sure that you're always comfortable in your career. So we're going to be talking a bit about personal branding in general, Mary's experience, and also specifically how to use LinkedIn to help build your personal brand. So let's get started. Mary, could you start off by giving us a bit of a background of yourself and also how you got into personal branding?
Yeah, sure. Evening, everyone. Definitely aware I'm the last session of the day. Was keeping you between you and your dinner and going home and going back out into maybe the rain or the thunder. It's really nice. So yeah, we'll definitely try and keep this session high energy, interactive. So looking forward to your questions as well. As Araminda said, I'm fun employed, which is what I call basically choosing to be unemployed and just rebranding the power of being unemployed and the fact that we can choose to do that. And I guess it links really nicely into the topic of personal branding. But I would say I'm really passionate about technology and how it's been used in financial services, particularly wealth management, to democratize the access to products and services. I'm also a fintech sales professional, so being here today has been amazing because now I know what all my marketing teams are doing behind my back. But no, honestly, whoops. I feel like an imposter in a good way. But really insightful, honestly, to understand the perspective of like fintech from a marketing perspective and what you shared. Started my career in management consulting, so I've always been involved like talking to people and communicating, which I've enjoyed. And then I also run a community and business focused on helping women earn more and be more confident, called the Now You're Talking Network. So that fills my time outside of my 9 to 5 and also when I'm unemployed. But the other part of the question was personal branding.
How did you discover it, like this kind of entire world of it? And when did you realize it was important, basically?
Yeah, okay. When did I realize personal branding was important? I think 2 stories. The first was by accident. So I've always enjoyed writing and I had a blog where I used to write about my career journey, literally as a management consultant, and it was on Medium, and Medium was just picking up as a blogging site. And I used to write, obviously not about the confidential projects, but just my learning and development as someone in corporate. And I used to write, just publish it. And one day at my consulting firm Christmas party, a colleague was like, "Oh, by the way, I found your blog." And I was like, "Hell no." And I was like, "Oh, great, this is fantastic." And they were like, I thought they were going to say, "Oh, this. But actually they were like, "Wow, I understand so much more about you and the way your brain works." And it was just really interesting to get their perspective on my thoughts. And it started a really interesting discussion between us. And from that moment, I thought, you know what, I'm going to own the fact that I have a careers blog and that I can share it with people and they might resonate with what I'm talking about. And that boosted my confidence and I realized, okay, I'm building a brand outside of just working at a Big 4 company. And then the second story is I thought about personal branding because I came to understand the PI methodology by Harvey Coleman. I don't know if anyone has heard about it before. Okay, not getting many nods, but it's really interesting. Definitely Google it after today. But essentially, Harvey Coleman wrote this book called The Organizational Game Revealed, and it was a really popular self-help book, I think in the 1980s. And the whole concept is around PI, which stands for Performance, Image, and Exposure. And what he said was that actually, usually people think in order to have career success, it's about the hard work, the P, which stands for performance, and that will get you the next promotion, that will get you the ability to rise within your career. But actually that model for most people needs to be shifted. He attributes only 10% of your career success to your performance, 30% to your image, which is about your first impression and how you show up to people and what they know about you, and then 60% to your exposure, which is the E. And I think when I came across that kind of framework, because I'm an ex-management consultant, I love frameworks, I was completely mind blown. And actually that book talks about how it's even more so for women, even more so for minorities who might not advocate for themselves, might not show up for themselves. So I would really recommend reading more about that model and that framework, because when we talk about personal branding, it is really about shouting about the work you do, not necessarily being the loudest, but recognizing these are based on facts. They're your accomplishments, and so you should tell people about them.
So before diving into like how to build a personal brand and all that, I'd love for you to explain a little bit. You've touched a little bit on the benefits of personal branding, but to go a bit deeper on that. And I think the way to do that is to explain how you define personal brand, because some people think it's just posting on LinkedIn and Twitter, but it's a lot more than that, right? And it's also about what you post and also how you think about things and how you communicate it. So apart from what you've mentioned, what are the other benefits of having a personal brand? And I think one of them is the whole fun employed thing for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, can you expand on that?
Okay, so I think personal branding is what people would say about you when you're not in the room. So how would they describe you? Would they say you're the Excel whiz? Are you like the best fintech marketer they know? What are your clients and your colleagues saying about you when you're not there? And in this digital first, sometimes hybrid first world that we live in, people are constantly Googling you, whether you know it or not. They're constantly searching your name in LinkedIn. And how are you curating that personal brand? And if you don't do it actively, people are going to be doing it anyway. So you're just taking an L because they're going to be searching you. So you might as well curate that experience that they have. So that's how I define it and why I think it's really important. And I guess on an overarching thesis basis, I personally believe personal branding is amazing because it is the great democratizer of access to opportunities and resources. Before you had to be in certain rooms to get certain opportunities, but through personal brand, particularly when we think about a digital personal brand, you can, like for instance, my fun employed post, I posted last Monday that I was fun employed, and now I just checked before I came here, it's got 400 likes and 10,000 people have seen it. I don't know 10,000 people. Like how like, I just don't understand. The reach is insane, and that's one of the reasons why I love LinkedIn. So we'll definitely talk about that. But the ability for you to share your story, to connect with people, to engage with people, I think is amazing. And again, you don't have to know certain people or be in certain old boys networks to get connected to things. Social media can be a way to enable you to build your network, and for people to understand who you really are beyond how they might judge you due to their like unconscious bias that we all have.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And actually it's funny because I got my first job at the age of like 19 because someone found me through my blog. So actually it happened to me as well.
Okay,
the
so
internet, because of the internet. So that's exactly like, yeah, I totally agree with you. And another phrase that I like to use, which we talked about on our call, is the word anti-fragile, right? Which is that by having a personal brand, you have kind of leverage, I guess, against employers and other people, in the sense that you will have so many opportunities coming your way that you can choose to say no whenever you want. So I think that's one of the biggest benefits. And
exactly.
What you've been saying as well.
Exactly, and same for me. Even just from that post again, like I think I've received 5 job offers. Obviously, the market is crazy, so they could I could start entertaining conversations with it. But I mean, just from that, just off the bat, people were like, "Yeah, if you're free, let's go." And I was like, "Okay." I said I wanted to relax. But yeah, I think it's just the power of network and opportunities. Like the charity board that I sit on, I got through LinkedIn. The part-time lecturing that I do in the US and in the UK, I got through LinkedIn. Like, honestly, I have so many case studies and kind of short stories about the power of building your personal brand.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
How do you get started? And we'll start big and then go more specific, so we can talk about LinkedIn in a bit. But let's just start general. How would you, someone who wants to get started, what are the steps that they should take?
Wow. So this could be a whole workshop in and of itself, but I think very simply what I like to tell people is think of 3 words or phrases that you want people to think about when you're not in the room and that you want to associate with yourself. So for me personally, it's fintech, it's careers, talking about your career and personal development, and probably women empowerment. So those are the kind of 3 phrases that I want to be known for. And anything else, I'm not gonna post about climate change unless it intersects with those things, because ultimately people do kind of want to put you in a box. They want to understand, like, Mary, what does she do? Like, so make people understand what are the thematic areas that you're interested in and what opportunities they can support you with, because people want to help you. So make it easier for them. And I think sometimes on social media in particular, people are trying to do too much. Like, they're like, okay, I know I need to do LinkedIn, so I'm gonna like everything, share everything, and it's like, what is your story? Like, at this point, you're just engaging with everything. So how do you make it easier for people to understand? I think those 3 words or phrases can be really good. And they also help you as an individual say yes or no to opportunities. So when something comes across, maybe for you to speak on a panel or for you to consider your next role, you can say, does it align to kind of the thematic areas that I'm trying to follow and to build a brand around as well?
So next question, do you think it's worth having a website, or should you just have LinkedIn? Is it worth actually having your own separate website?
So I'm probably an advocate of having a personal website because I have one, and I personally want to save my URL for. I personally think it's worth it, but I think it depends. Like, traditionally, if you're like a UX designer and you don't have a website, that's hella weird. So you should have one, and maybe software engineers will want to showcase the skills that they can have to build websites through that. But I personally think I like having a personal website for a different reason, which is more to like have a log of things that I'm happy that I've achieved. So like I have all the awards that I've won on there. I have like the blogs that I've written, the places that I've spoke. It's like my online portfolio of everything. If you go onto my website, it's crowded and I do need to update it. But it's a lot of things on there, and that's why I like to have it. But also, again, it is something that is probably the first thing that you see when you Google my name. So again, I'm able to curate the experience that people have. And also it gives me a lot more customization than the standard LinkedIn profile, where I can't change the colors dramatically, or Twitter or X, like I can write beyond like 140 characters or whatever. So I like the ability to customize and the ability to have a log, to be grateful for all the things that I've done that a personal website gives you. But for a lot of people, I feel like they use that as like a crutch. It's like, oh, I can't have a personal brand because I haven't bought my domain. It's like, no, like at this point, that's an excuse. Like, it's just not. Create a Twitter, create a LinkedIn profile. I'm sure we mostly have one, and dedicate like half an hour a week at least to just going on there, engaging with content, and we'll talk about that more as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask how long you spend on the website. I mean, I guess it depends on whether you're creating content for the website, which I know you've done.
Yeah.
But would you say, how long should you be spending every week? Would you say on the website and maybe also LinkedIn and everything else as well?
It's one of those like, how long is a piece of string kind of questions. I think it depends on your role and what you want to get out of it. I do think you could spend all day, every day on LinkedIn if you wanted to. Do you want to do that? Maybe not so much. It depends on your objectives. But I think at the very least, everyone could do half an hour a week on LinkedIn. Especially right now, I feel like it's such an active platform. There's so many posts going out. Your company post, maybe companies that you want to work at. There's so much content on there, like, especially they're pushing like video, they're pushing like content from not only people that you're connected to, but like your second and third connections as well. So I think dedicating the time, even just like calendar blocking it, is a good way to make it important and a bit more urgent in your kind of busy, hectic work life, because it's something that for a lot of people is like, oh yeah, you do it when I'm trying to look for a job, and then as soon as I get the job, forget that LinkedIn thing. Yeah. Especially on a personal level, as marketers, you might be using it from the company brand perspective, but not for yourself. And I think dedicating the time for yourself is important. I think in some ways even more important than your CV, because people are seeing it constantly and checking your profile.
Yeah. So imagine we're going to start creating LinkedIn content. What you've mentioned already, you need to be known by these 3 words. What kind of content though? And the reason I ask this question is because there's this constant debate between creating kind of educational content that I know a lot about this topic, and then there's this rise of like vulnerability content and like, oh, this is my personal story, this is what I'm thinking. So should there be a balance? Should you focus more on one or the other? What are your thoughts on that and kind of the type of content you should put on?
Yeah, I love that. A spicy question. So, what do I think? I personally think you will never find me posting on LinkedIn a picture of me crying, of my family, of my holiday. Like, that is not me. I will never do that. And therefore, my threshold, I've decided like what I'm comfortable sharing. On Instagram, it's maybe different, but on LinkedIn, my colleagues don't need to see that personally, or my clients. But decide what that threshold is for you and what you're comfortable with sharing. But I have noticed actually, those pictures of people crying, their cats, their dogs, their children, do really well because people are just like, you know what, I thought you were a boring lawyer, but now you're a boring lawyer with kids and a cat and a dog and who went to Barbados. Like, people are just like very interested in recognizing that people are multifaceted individuals, which is obvious, but LinkedIn really helps us understand that. So again, decide what you're comfortable with, pick and choose what you want to post. I think that's really important. I've forgotten the first part.
Well then, yeah, so it was just like types of posts. Should it be like educational?
Oh, yes.
Should it be like, oh, this is my journey, maybe moving away from personal stuff, but more like, this is what I'm doing today, or oh, I won this award, or like what type of content should
I think try everything.
Yeah.
Decide what you feel comfortable with and try everything. Again, LinkedIn favors some things. If you're announcing that you're about to start a new job, or you're announcing something that is a bit quirky, like being unemployed, then it will do well because people are just attracted to things that are different. But I would say try different things. A lot of people say to me they are honestly terrified of even posting on LinkedIn, which is very honest and vulnerable. So I would just say, just start off by liking content in relation to your 3 words or your 3 phrases. And then people will see, like, it literally shows you, like, Araminta's like this post. So then people see, okay, you really like climate change, or you're interested in climate change. And then maybe after liking, you can start to share. And then maybe you can start to share with your thoughts at the top. So there's ways to like edge yourself into it, so you don't feel like I need to just go out there and post on Big Bang or start a newsletter. Like, there was definitely a period earlier this year where every person was starting a newsletter. Yeah. Where is that newsletter now? Like, honestly, if you're going to do something, try and make it consistent. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, just maybe you start off with an objective of like, okay, every week I want to like 5 posts, and then the next week is like, okay, not only do I want to like 5 posts, but I also want to just share things that I'm interested in. Then I want to comment, and then I want to maybe write my own post about something. And sometimes I just post and close my eyes and go off the web app, because I just like don't want to overthink it, because then I start thinking, oh, who's going to see this and that and that and that. And obviously I'm proofreading it, and these days getting ChatGPT to write it. But again, I think there's like, if you overthink it too much, then you just won't do it.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that. And yeah, it's difficult because it's what you said, right? If you start too big, then you'll just not commit, and then it'll drop off. Yeah. I think it'd be interesting, I don't know if anyone's interested, but basically I started posting on LinkedIn close to every day around February, and it's now December. So it's been like almost a year. And it took me until, I would say, September before I got like results, being people coming to us and wanting to work with us.
Amazing.
A long time.
Yeah.
And it's still quite small numbers. So what would you say to that? Is that normal? I hope so. But also, how long can people expect to see kind of results, whatever that means for you, I guess?
Oh, interesting question. What do I think? I don't know, the results thing depends, because it depends on what basis someone is starting from and their objective, and like, but what I would say in my consultant way of answering your question is like, build the network before you need it. Like, a lot of people are like, okay, especially as someone who works in sales, like, I'm not just trying to target my clients, I'm trying to target everyone, so that like, they don't even know they want my product yet, but they're gonna buy it. Like, that's my mentality. It's like, they're just gonna resonate with me as an individual, and then they're gonna be like, you know what, I like Mary, like, I'm just gonna be interested, like, where she goes next, I'll give her half an hour to just chat about whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I think building that network before you need it is really important as well. And in terms of metrics, like, I've seen people get a bit too metrics obsessed. Like, there's a lot of analytics on LinkedIn now, and people are like studying it and like, did this get enough likes? And it's like, there are loads of people watching your content, watching your LinkedIn, that will never like a single thing. So also with that unemployed post, I put my Calendly in the post and was like, if you're free and you wanna catch up, like, just book some time with me. I like added more availability to my Calendly, and I was like, maybe 4 people will do it. I have no time now. It's like 1.5 months. I'm not even joking. Like
that's
people book
crazy.
like every single session. I had to block out like Christmas. Someone trying to book a time with me on Christmas Day. I was like, what the hell? Like, so yeah, I think people are definite. Even if some people honestly will never like your stuff, but they're watching. They're just like, oh, this person's a bit more active. Okay, interesting. Oh, you're doing this now. Okay, it's just funny watching. People that I think are not even interested in me are like, okay, yeah, I've been seeing your content, and people respect it because it's like you have the audacity to share your opinion, to share your views, within reason, obviously, and generally people respect it.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And when I say results for us, like it's just so hard to track, and the only way I know is because they said it on a call. Like that's the only way you can attribute is self-attribution. Which is why I think you tell me, but you want your salespeople to ask on a call, where did you first hear about us? What have you been consuming? Because it's the only way to track, I think. Because I mean, apart from maybe a calendar thing. But
exactly. Or if you can see what sites people are coming from or things like that. But yeah, I think asking people that all the time, or like sometimes even in these calendar meetings I've been having, I just ask people like, oh, what resonated with you on the post, or what did you really like? And they'll be like, honestly, someone was like, well, back in 2017, you wrote this blog. I was like, what the hell? Like, I don't even remember that blog, but I love that it resonated with you, that you still remember that. And yeah, so people are watching and people are observing.
Yeah. So my final question is, and I think this is kind of a challenge that maybe some people will face, is how do I communicate this to the employer? Like, I'm worried, I want to start a personal brand, but I'm worried that they might shut it down. I'm worried that they won't be comfortable with it. I have heard stories of people, unfortunately,
100%,
losing their job or having it at risk because of this. So what would you recommend they say to their employer? How would you communicate it? And any tips on that?
Yeah, good question. Spicy question number 2. Chatham House rules, I'm joking. No, this is just my personal opinion. What do I think? Well, I'm not someone that will ever have an employer header like image on my LinkedIn. Like my LinkedIn is my LinkedIn. I work for your company, but I could also work for another company at the end of the day. And I also have my own stuff. So I want it to be my page, but that's just me personally. I think that you don't really need to declare to your employer that you want to start building your personal brand. Generally, obviously read your contract, but like, I think a lot of it is more in people's heads than it actually is. Like a lot of people are like, oh, if I start posting about things that I'm interested in, will that look like I want to leave the company? And I'm just like, you've really made a lot of deductions here. Like if they are not happy with you having your own kind of brand identity, that's a bigger issue within the organization. And also just the fact that your personal brand can be a valuable asset, I think is a really interesting thing as well. Like when I was in consulting, I used to have like clients say to me like, I follow you on Twitter, your content is really interesting, and I would be like, oh, amazing, thank you. And literally there were PwC partners that were like, we don't even get that. Like, what are you doing? Give me a session. I was like, okay. So I think that, it obviously depends on the employer that you work for, but generally don't feel like it's either or. I do both. I work in sales. Of course I have to sell my company, but I can also build my own personal brand. And what's more powerful about that is like, I can export that with me wherever I go. And remember, as you're building the employer brand, you can try and point back, especially as a marketer, to say, I did this, but you should also be thinking about yourself and how you're telling your own story within that. And doing the obvious things like documenting when you're speaking and events that you've attended and things like that as well.
Yeah, I think you also want to make it really clear the benefits to the employer. I think you've mentioned already, like at Seckle, you were getting leads because of your personal brand. Like, what employer would say no to that?
Exactly. And to be honest, I think it played a big part into why they hired me as well. Like, I met the founder when I was in consulting, and they loved the network that I had within fintech, and they were like, we want to hire you and your network and like the doors you can open as well. And I think that is something that is, even in those 5 offers that I've had, they're like, oh yeah, we need this, so bring this with you. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So it can definitely be a value add, particularly the work I do around women in tech, helping women earn more and be more confident as well.
Yeah. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
I was trying to pack everything in there.
So we do have a couple of minutes for questions. If anyone wants to ask the incredible Mary any questions. questions on personal branding, feel free. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
How much do you keep your finger on trends in terms of what works and what doesn't? So I don't know, I'm sure everyone here has noticed before and after COVID trend on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So when thought leadership was very prominent before, now after what we went through, we're all desperate for more human interactions, more human stories. And to be honest, when I try to post more thought leadership-led thing,
it doesn't do as
yeah,
well.
I mean, I've had a few mates kind of reacting. But if it's more personal and a glossy picture, the reaction is completely different.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
So first part of the question is, do I study trends? Yes. So I actually try and search and would say like every now and then they update like the LinkedIn algorithm, the X algorithm, TikTok algorithm, and I'll just search like what are the latest updates, and then these people that literally break down what has changed with the algorithm, and they can literally tell you what time to post, when is best to post, when do B2B people go on LinkedIn, like they can literally break down everything. So I search that on a periodic basis. And then you're so right, like I do think this kind of vulnerability content is doing better on LinkedIn, but I would deduce that mostly to like attention spans and like the novelty of it. Like, oh, someone's crying on their post. Interesting, let me find out more. Like, I don't know why I keep talking about crying, but anyway.
We're all thinking about the same post.
Right, yeah, we're all thinking about the same
from
post.
March. Or whatever.
Exactly. And so I think there's that element that intrigues people and also allows them to understand that you're more than just your job title. But I do think that people still read thought leadership. They might not like it, but a lot of the time they're like, okay, I need to read this because this is good content. Let me open the tab and I'll come back to it. Whether they come back to it is another story, but it all adds up to the picture that they have of you and the content that you produce. And again, there's people that I noticed that as well, like my thought leadership content does less well, but again, people refer to it just as much. Mm-hmm. So I know that they're either skimming it, and then we could go into a conversation about like how you lay it out, like making sure people have short attention spans, a lot of bullet points, a nice grabbing title, using facts and figures that people can reference and stuff like that as well.
I think it's also important to know that you'll get better, right, over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like month 1, month 2, I remember I was pretty bad, it was pretty boring, but the more you do it, the better you get at short form writing, which I think is a great skill to have as well.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Nice. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
So, who are you following?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I follow a lot of people. Honestly, if you go to my LinkedIn, I follow a lot of people because I really like to just consume lots of different content and see very different people from not even just fintech, but outside of fintech as well. But people that I like, I don't know, I like authenticity, which is such a buzzword, but I just like a little bit of the personal, honest, vulnerable stuff, but also the business insights. But again, I recognize I follow different people for different things. There's the people that have serial like fintech newsletters that I follow and that I read like every Monday at 9 a.m. And then there's the people that are like, like Barack Obama is on there. Like I like that kind of content as well, just to like inspire me and uplift me. So I think honestly, every year or usually every 6 months, I try and literally go through everyone that I follow and make sure it's the content that I want to see, particularly on like my personal social media, because I don't want to be seeing people that are I'm not resonating with their stuff anymore. I want to see things that uplift me, that are motivating, that are engaging. So hopefully that answers your question, yeah.
Yes, I know. Time's up.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mary.